Alright guys, so today we're going to be learning how to make a simple drivetrain. So before we get started, I'm using Fusion 360, and here's just a really quick rundown of the controls for Fusion. So you can hold down middle click and pan, like move your mouse around to pan around. And if you hold down shift and middle click, you can orbit. And then to zoom in and out, you can scroll. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to get started with a sketch. So a sketch is it's a 2D representation of something that you're going to make 3D later on. So for example, if you want to make a plate for something, like a panel, you would sketch it out first, and then you can turn it into a 3D thing later. So to get started, we're going to go up here to the Create tab. We're going to go over here to Rectangle and select Center Rectangle. So this allows you to make a rectangle starting from the center of it. So we're gonna click and we're gonna make this 431.8 by 80. There we go. 431 by 80. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go up here and press on the line tool. We're gonna press X to make it a construction line. We're gonna make this 160. Make sure it's at 0 degrees. Just like that, 160. Let's go on over here and let's do the same thing on the other side. 160. There we go. And now we're going to place two of those circles on the edges of them. 4.1 and 4.1. Okay, so what we have just done is we have created the two holes where our axles are going to go. So obviously our wheels need to spin on some sort of axle. So our axle is going to go here and our wheels are going to go onto these axles. So now what we can do is we can grab two more lines. Let's make them construction lines again. Let's start from the center of that circle. Make these 140. There we go. Same thing on the other side, like usual. 140. There we go. So now it should look a little something like this. So our next step is going to be go right here and create two circles. They're each going to be 38.5. And you see how I made this one a construction one on accident? I can click on it. I can press X. So now we're going to do the same exact thing on the other side. Press here. Make sure it's on the construction circle. And 38.5. We'll press enter. There we go. So now, this is exactly where our motors are going to go, inside of this circle, inside of this circle. So to save on some weight, what we're going to try and do is we're actually going to connect these two circles so that we'll have just like a big ellipse kind of. So here we go. So let's say we connect it here and we will connect it right there. Line those two up just like that. And okay, so now if we finish the sketch, we should have something that looks basically like this. So what this is a 2D representation of our inner plate. So now what we can do is we can just click, we can press E. So what E does, E is the extrude tool. So this is how you make 2D sketches 3D. So notice how I clicked, but I didn't click on any of these shapes. This is because all of these are going to be our cutouts. We don't want those there. So now we're going to extrude this up to 3.75 millimeters because, well, we're using aluminum, and aluminum is actually pretty strong and pretty thin. So this is like as thick as it really needs to be. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to save this. So let's name this right DT. Actually, let's name this right inner plate because we're going to assemble the drivetrain later. So we're just going to save that right there. There we go. It's going to appear here. So now, while that's saving, what we can do is I can take a look at my folder structure. So I have my folders set up like this. So I have a separate folder for plates, a separate folder for my imports, and I have a separate folder for my assemblies right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a new design inside of the assemblies. So I'll just save this right away, actually. I'll name this RIFT DT for drivetrain assembly. Save that. So now I can go on over to the plates and I can just import this in. There we go. So now we can actually get started with our motors. So all of these imports are going to be linked in the video somewhere, maybe in the description. And we're also going to leave a file of the completed CAD. So what we're going to do is we got to drag in this motor. And let's just like move it out of the way, just make this easier for us. So let's just turn this around 180 degrees. You can press enter. Okay. So now we're going to use something called the joint tool. So you press J and we are going to just like that on the inside of that circle. We're going to want to joint it to one of these snap points. But you see when I try and go to that snap point, it disappears. So what you can do is you can actually just hover over here, hold control, and now you can just go over there to that snap point. Just like that. So now we just press enter, and now our motor is attached there. Or at least, well, it's attached there temporarily for us to work with. So now we're going to drag in our second motor. Okay, there we go. Let's just move this out of the way. And let's turn this around. 180 degrees. Now we can press enter again. Now we can press J again. Let's do that. And once again, hold control, drag over here, and enter. There we go. So now what we can do is we can actually let's make a new sketch over here to take some measurements. So once again, we'll go on to a center rectangle right here in the middle. Now we're going to make this, okay, well, maybe make this 90. Yeah, let's make this one 50. Yeah, that looks good. So 90 by 50. There we go. Okay. So actually, let me go back into that sketch. You can do that by going to this timeline. You can press on that and make it a. I pressed X to make it a construction line. There we go. Okay, so 90 by 50. So now what we can do is we can go back to our plates. Let's make a new plate actually. So we can save this right here. Save that drivetrain. Make a new design. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a sketch. Just like that. Not a 2-point rectangle, a center rectangle. Let's make this 90 by 50. There we go. So now what we can do is we can actually finish this sketch. We can extrude this to 3.75. Just like that. So now if we go back to this assembly that we're working on here, we actually have to save this first. It's going to be our motor plate. There we go. Let's go back over to here. Let's just drag this in. Oh, okay, so this actually turned out really nicely where it just snapped into place, but if that didn't happen, what you can do is you can press the move. Now make sure it's on components right here, move objects on components. You can select, make sure it's on point to point. So now we're going to select to move that. Now for our origin point, we're going to select that corner. And for our target point, we can select that corner. And now we can press OK. So now what we can also do is we can press M. We can press on that. We can go back to free move. And let's make sure that we're only moving in this direction. Go just like that. There we go. So now let's make another sketch. Let's capture that position. Okay, so what we can do is we can actually project the geometries onto our sketch. So we can press P for project. Then we can press on this face and on this face. Press OK. There we go. So now if you notice, it's like purple lines that are projected. So now what we can do is we can press L, make a construction line. Let's just measure between these two. There we go. So if we inspect this, 40 millimeters, okay. So what that means is we can go back to this plate right here. We can make a new sketch. And let's go 20 millimeters in each direction. Let's go 20 millimeters there. Let's make this a construction line. 20 millimeters in the other direction. Make that construction line as well. There we go. So now we come back here. You'll notice that we need to add mounting holes so that the motor can attach to this plate properly. So what we're going to do is we're going to replicate this pattern, and we're also going to add a hole for this shaft, for this Rex shaft. So let's go back to our motor plate. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a center rectangle. We're going to make it 16 by 16. This is just a standard go build a mounting pattern. So let's do that one more time on this side. So 16 by 16. Now let's go on over to rectangular pattern. Actually, before that, we need to figure out what we're going to make our pattern with. So let's make our holes for actually screwing the motors in. So 4.1. So now we can go over here to rectangular pattern and select that. And we can select the amount of rows and the amount of columns over here on the right. So 2 and 2. So now we can drag it out to be 16 and 16. There we go. And now we can do that same exact thing over here on the right. So 16, oops, 4.1, actually 4.1, and now rectangular pattern. So 2, 2, we can just drag this out to be 16. Drag this out to be 16 as well. There we go. So now all we need to do is create the holes for our shaft to go through. So you can actually make the hole pretty small, but I want to leave the option open to make or to add in a bearing here. So I'm going to make it 14 millimeters. Same thing on this side, 14. There we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these just like that. Just like this. Now I'm going to press E. And now I'm going to pan around to the other side. And I'm going to select that face. So that's going to extrude all of my selections perfectly to the other side. And I can press enter. Oh, looks like I actually didn't select something. Let me go back to that. There we go. Now I selected everything. So now if I save this, there we go. Now we can go back over here. Notice we'll have like this yellow like caution sign. warning sign. So we got these. We got to right click. We got to press update external references. So now that's going to update. It's going to update everything in here, just like that. So what we can do now is we can actually make the holes for our standoffs. So let's make a new sketch, and we're going to create another center rectangle. Let's make this one construction. Let's say we go to, let's see. Yeah, okay, let's say 82 by 42. That looks pretty good. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make the holes for our standoffs. So 4.1 again. There we go. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create another rectangular pattern with that one. We're going to make this 2 by 2 again. And now we're going to drag this out to 82 and drag this out to, there we go, 42. Press enter. And now that's done. So now what we can do is we can select all of these, and we can extrude them once again. Flip this to the back, just like that. Enter. There we go. Now we have all of the holes for our standoffs made. So we can save this. There we go. Go right on over here. We can update this. Okay. So now let's go back over here. Let's actually check the dimensions of that rectangle. So this was 82 and that was 42. So let's go on over to our inner plate. Let's actually make a sketch right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to use another center rectangle, just like that. So we're going to make it 82 by 42. Just like that. So 82 by 42. So let's actually click on that. Let's actually make it a construction one. And now we're going to go over here and we're going to place circle 0.1. Now another rectangular pattern for 2 and 2. So 82, 42. There we go. So now we can select that one. We can select that one. I can extrude, flip it over to the back, extrude to there. There we go. Let's save that. There we go. Now we can go right on back here. Now we can update. And there we go. So now we have all our holes made here. So now what we can do is we can go on over to our imports, and we're actually going to be using these 30mm standoffs. So let's drag some in. So let me finish the sketch first. Let's just drag some in. So let's drag in our first one. Okay, let me just rotate this to make it easier for me to work with. There we go. So now I can press J and I can go on this face, hold Control, click. Now I can go on over to here, Control and click. There we go. Okay. Now let's do this a couple more times. Let's drag this one over to here. We can rotate it just to make it easier to select. J again. Click. And now we can add it right there. Just enter. And same thing 2 more times. So 90 degrees, just to make this easy to select. There we go. And last one. There we go. Now we can join that right over here. So let's select that, join that there. So you might run into an issue where it's flipped to the wrong side like this. So then what you do is just press this little flip button right there. So there we go. So now what we're actually going to do is we're actually going to get rid of these rigid joints right here. So we can delete that right there. It's going to move that back to its original spot. Can delete that right there. So move that over there. And now one thing that we can do is we can rigid joint that over to here, just like that. We can joint that. There we go. We can get rid of these sketches. We can just hide them. We don't need them anymore. So now what we can do is we can go right on over here to joint. We can hold control, click on that one. So that was our, so that's going to go into, okay, that was our top left hole. So it's going to go right there. Let's press enter. Let's take a look. Let's see. So look like everything lines up. Yep. And so now, same situation over here. Just like that. Go to the inside here. Just like that. Press enter. There we go. So now we'll be able to screw in our motors into these 4 holes right there. And that should work just like that. So now what we're going to do is we are going to grab some of these pulleys actually. So let's just move these over to here. Let's rotate these to give us a better idea of what we're working with. Okay, so now we're going to go over to this back side. I'm going to press J. We're going to joint that middle part to that middle part. You see? Oops. So wrong way. Let me flip that. There we go. And that will be attached there. So, you know, notice how it's not perfect. You like when you actually build this, you have to like mess with how far away or how far onto the Rex shaft this goes. So this is just like a mock-up. So now we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to go right on over to there. Now we're going to turn this by 100 or by 90. So we can just joint this. Let's just go right there. Flip that. Okay. There we go. So now that looks pretty good. Okay. So now what we need to do is we actually need to, okay, so we need standoffs for these. So That is something that I actually forgot to import into this folder. So let me actually go grab those from a separate folder. Let's see if I can easily find these, or if it's gonna be let's see, is it these ones? Let's see, it's 56 millimeters. These are not Rex, unfortunately. Okay, let me just go find it then. I will do this. I'll just open up a completed version of this. Let me just show these. Where are they? Show and location. There we go. And now what I can do is I can copy them. I can copy them over to here. There we go. So now we close this. Okay. So now let me go here. Let me go here. Okay. There we go. So now let me add in these standoffs. So notice how these are Rex standoffs because of like the shape. So let's press enter there. Now we can joint these. So there we go, just like that. And let's do the same exact thing over here on this side. So here we go, joint that. Let's joint it right over here. Okay, there we go. So now all of that is jointed. So now we can drag in this little assembly. So what this right here is, it's an assembly of a mechanism wheel and some like 3D printed components. So basically this is just a nice, basically it's just a nice way to mount it. You have a bearing here. Yeah, you have a bearing here, and basically the wheel, a bearing here instead of this. The wheel kind of like, it spins as if it's on a dead axle. So there we go, just press enter there. So now what we're going to do is we can press J. We can do this, we can do that. So normally there'd be like some sort of spacing, or there'd be like some washers or something to space that out. But in this case, we can just move it forward a little bit, just to kind of simulate that. So now we can do that same thing on the other side. And there we go. Okay, so now we can do that same thing. Joint that. Let's put that right there. Make this, oops. Let's make this 0. And now let's just move this forward by, I think we did 5 millimeters over there. Doesn't matter too much. And there we go. So now what we need to do is we need to figure out our standoff situation and add in some more. Okay, so we just need to add in some more holes onto this plate. So what that means is, here, we can save this for now, just in case. This plate we are actually done with for now. Let's just save that. So now we can go back to this inner plate. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's measure actually. So okay, we'll do that later. So let's just measure for now. So if we make a center rectangle, so make it a construction one. Let's go, just kind of look at this side, for example. Let's say we do it right there. How does that look? Okay, so this is going to be where we put the holes for our standoffs. So actually, maybe we should, this is 420, maybe we can make this 425. Actually, let's see, maybe let's look at some other options. Let's do, yeah, okay, so let's say, okay, so how much is this? So let's inspect this. 426 and 74. Okay, so let's do that same thing right here. So let's create a center rectangle. So let's make it 426 by 74. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make circles. We're going to make them 4.1. There we go. And now we're going to make a pattern with this. 2 and 2. So let's just kind of drag this right the way over. There we go, 426. And we can drag this down here to 74. Press enter. Now we can select them. Okay, now we can extrude. Let's extrude to this other side. You can press enter. There we go. Okay, so now, what we can do is we can save this. Let's go on over here. Let's update everything. There we go. We can finish that sketch. We don't really need that actually. So we can just go into sketches. We can just hide that sketch. So now, okay, so now what we can do is we can grab these standoffs just like that. There we go. And we can attach these to attach them there. Press OK. Let's see. Okay, so it looks like we actually need to put our holes in further. Okay. So let's go back to that sketch then. So we can 426, let's make this like 423. Oops, that's 430. 423. See if we can do that. And let's make this like 70, like 72 maybe. There we go. So now what we need to do is we need to edit this pattern. So we can say 423, you said, and say like 72. So how does this look now? 72 and 423. Okay, that looks good. So now if we save that, okay, let's go over here. Let's update everything. There we go. So now, okay, so yeah, that looks good. If you really want, you can probably try and get it perfectly aligned, but it doesn't really matter. You want to make sure that there's some clearance for your wheel. So now what you're going to do is you're going to add in the remaining posts. So just like that. It's these standoffs. Just like that. With actual, so like square beams more like. There we go. Let's do the same thing on this other side. There we go. Now we can do that. And let's jump on over here. Okay. Now, let me do this. Right on over here. And now, just attach that right there. There we go. So now, what we can do is, okay, so first of all, it would probably make sense to actually round off all of these plates. So first we'll do our motor plate. So let's we can do is let's finish that sketch. Let's go back to the very beginning here. Now we can kind of round off all these corners. So don't worry about these warnings for now, where they're all gonna, they should go away. So now we're only gonna make this like a 2 millimeters of rounding. Let's finish that off. There we go. Let's save that. Let's update this. There we go. So all of that looks really good, really good. So now this one we might have some issues with that, but we will see. Okay, so let's do that same thing. Just like that and like that. Take this just 2 millimeters. Just like that. Let's save that. And let's go back here and let's check. Let's check what type of issues we have. So, yeah, okay. So that breaks a lot. That breaks a lot of things. So, what's wrong with this part? Okay, so here we go. So what we can do now, so if we finish that sketch right there. Okay, so first of all, let's deal with this. Let's make this 70. And let's just make this like 421. So there we go. Okay, so now it's going over to this rectangular pattern. 421 and 70. There we go. Let's just reload this. Okay, there we go. So now everything fits very, very nicely. There. So now what we need to do is we need to add an outer plate to this. So to do that, what we can do is just go to plates. So we can take this plate right here. What we can do is we can copy it, I think. We copy it into, let's copy it into here. So now let's just, what we can do is we can rename this to right outer plate. And now we don't need them, but we don't need a lot of this. So what we can do is we can actually, okay, so we just need to finish, we just need to kind of extrude all of this. So let's see if it'll let me extrude like right here. If I'm gonna have to. Okay, so we can at least extrude all of this. Actually, I think that what we can do is we can actually just keep all this intact by going into that extrude and just editing everything. There we go. Just like that. And then we can also go into here. And what we can do is, we can just straight up get rid of this extrude. There we go. So now we have that one. So we can just save that. Now let's go over here to this assembly. Let's wait until that finishes uploading. Let's drag that plate in. Let's just kind of bring that over there. Now I can do is I can press J to join those. Go on over to here. I can connect that up. Press enter. There we go. So at a certain point, like you'll probably be advanced enough that you can like pocket this, but we're not going to go into that in this tutorial. So this right here is a half drivetrain basically. So next what you would do is you would basically reconstruct this on the other side using your existing pieces now, and then you would just combine them. So we'll get into that in the next tutorial.